friends, this is the Mrs. Wolfie from our Half Acre Homestead. This is a video response to Lexi E. Lexi's never raised laying hens or chickens and has asked my advice on overwintering laying hens in a northern climate. I've written this all down, so hopefully I won't have missed anything. But if anybody out there has anything to add, then you just go right ahead and help with the comments. Now, initially I was going to just email this to Lexi, but then I realized as I was writing it out, there may be other people out there who want to know this information. So here we go. This is overwintering and raising laying hens for the first time. Ideally, you want a minimum of 2 square feet of coop floor space for each chicken. Minimum. So a 6 by 8 foot coop would be perfect for a dozen hens. You would need 2 roosts. 2 8-foot lengths of 2 by 2 would work well. One a foot out from the wall and one 2 feet out from the wall, and one slightly higher than the other. You want the lowest one to be at least 2 feet off the floor to make it easier to rake out beneath them. If you want them to have a yard, you should have at least the same size as the coop. So you want a yard the same size as the inside of your chicken coop, minimum. With a little sliding door near the floor on the inside of your chicken coop, so you can open it in the morning to let them out into the yard and close it at night once they come in. I cannot stress enough, okay? All your birds must be inside and all doors closed and locked at night. If they have a yard, you must bury the chicken wire fencing 12 to 18 inches deep to discourage digging predators. Personally, we dug ours down 18 inches and then we cut up tin roofing that we had in scrap, and we actually buried that with the fence so that if anything did dig, they couldn't dig through the tin. We made our fence high enough with a gate so that should you ever need to get into your yard, you can. Okay, you want it high enough that you can walk in. Now, if you just want them to have a little yard, that's fine, but the problem is if something goes wrong in that yard, or a bird dies or something, and you can't get, if it's low, you can't get in there to clean it out. I also recommend laying some strapping across the yard from fence to fence so that you can lay chicken wire over top. This will stop hawks and eagles and even raccoons dropping down from trees to get into your chicken yard. Mind you, most of the raccoons and stuff come at night, but hawks and that, my friend Stephanie found out that they will watch your yard and they'll pick off a chicken a day until you have none left. So chicken wiring over the top of the yard is a really good idea. It can get expensive, but once a good coop and yard is built, it seldom needs repairs for many years. And you may go years without ever having a predator problem, and then one day, boom, your flock is wiped out. As my When Raccoons Attack video shows, Howie left the sliding chicken door open that much, and a raccoon got over the fence, into the yard, it lifted it, and a whole family of raccoons wiped out 40 meat birds in one night. One night. So I can never stress the safety enough because it's heartbreaking. It really is. Nesting boxes. Well, they're easy. My birds like milk crates. You can also use 5-gallon pails laid on their sides with 2/3 of the lid cut off and then the 1/3 piece snapped into place on the bottom. You'd want to build some kind of framework like your roosts of 2 by 2s so that you can lay them on there, mount them to the wall, like screw them into the wall at the back of the bucket and then set them on these roosts, these 2 by 2s with some strapping on either side of the bucket so that they don't really roll, okay? And they don't need to be any more than higher than a foot off the floor. And you need 1 nesting box for every 3 birds. So if you have a dozen hens, 4 good-sized nesting box, milk crates or 5-gallon pail boxes will be fine. The pails work really well because you can snap that lid off and clean them out really well, snap it back on and put fresh straw in. Laying hens need 12 hours of light minimum a day to lay. They work on a light cycle, okay? So in the winter, now we're talking northern climates here. In the winter, a 60-watt bulb on a timer works really well. And let me see what I've written here. And if your coop is insulated, then that's almost enough to keep them warm in the winter, because you winter your birds inside the coop. You don't let them out in the yard unless you don't get a lot of snow, but still you want them to be warm and comfortable. You put a 60-watt bulb on a timer, and you set it because your winter days are shorter. And like I said, they need a minimum of 12 to 16 hours of light a day. So what you would do is you get a 60-watt incandescent bulb, and you put it on a timer, and you set the timer so that the light comes on at 5 in the morning and shuts off between 5 and 7 p.m. at night. Then, to keep them warm, you have a 75-watt. Now, you can use a 250-watt infrared bulb if you want, but your hydro bill is going to be insane. All you need, really, is a 75 to 100-watt red floodlight. And the reason I say red is because chickens need a rest period of semi-darkness. You're going to be tempted to leave that white light on all the time, thinking, well, if they need 12 hours of light, 24 hours of light all the time is going to be good. No. They need a rest period. So what you do is you have a red floodlight about 2 to 3 feet off the floor in a brooder lamp. And when that white light goes off at night, they automatically settle in for the night, because the red is a dimmer, semi-dark thing. It gives them semi-darkness so that they can actually go into a rest period. Oh, so if you don't give them a minimum of 12 hours of light a day and a rest period at night, you're going to be feeding your birds all winter and getting very little eggs. Okay? This keeps their cycle of light going so that it's like summer all the time with their daylight hours, and they will continue to lay. At one point in the summer, they will go through a molt period. Okay? They'll lose all their feathers and stop laying. This is normal. This will happen for about 6 weeks, and it's basically they lose all their feathers, they stop laying, their body goes through a rest period, and then they just start up again. They get fresh feathers and they start up again. Don't panic if they stop laying after about a year and they go through a molt. This is normal. Oh, well-housed and well-maintained 20-week-old laying hens will lay almost an egg a day for 10 months. Before their first molt. So if you only have a small family, 6 laying hens is plenty. Trust me, because you're going to get 6 eggs a day for about 10 months. So unless you have a dehydrator or you love pickled eggs, you don't need that many. And they will slow down after their first molt. They will slow down to maybe 9 eggs a day out of 12 birds. And then they'll go through the year, and they'll go through another molt, and then maybe out of 12 hens, you'll get 6 eggs a day. Once they get to the third molt, they're pretty much good for soup. You'll still get eggs, but not enough to warrant feeding them on a daily basis, because you'll be spending more on feed than you would be on buying eggs from a farmer. So after the third molt, if they're well maintained, you can get 3 years out of laying hens. Easily 3 years. You can buy 19-week-old ready to laying hens from your farmer's co-op or your farmer's feed store. You have to, if you're going to do it for this year, you have to order them soon, because they usually order them in the spring. You can also buy day-old chicks, but then it's a whole different set of where you've got to have a brooder, and you've got to feed them a special feed, and then you have to raise them and feed them for 5 months before you get your eggs. So if this is your first time, I recommend buying ready-to-lay laying hens, because they're all the same age, they'll settle in faster, and you'll have instant gratification. It's a little more expensive, quite a bit more expensive than buying them day-old, but it actually works out to be the same than all the work that you put raising them for 5 months before you actually get your first egg. I do not recommend buying them from a farmer. Unless you want a couple of odd colored ones for your flock for diversity. And again, when you buy 20-week-old ready-to-lay birds, they usually have two kinds, white egg layers and brown egg layers. You can probably buy Plymouth Barred Rocks or whatever. I recommend Barred Rocks only because they're a heritage breed. They lay brown eggs and they're fairly quiet. They're very quiet and easy to maintain. But if you just want to buy a standard breed of brown egg layer, they're usually a little red hen and they do quite well. But if you're buying from a farmer, you really don't know how old they are. They could be carrying a disease that when you stress them out by moving them, they could die. You know, I mean, we've all done it. We've all bought hens. Oh yeah, they're still laying really good. You know, and you get a really good price on them, and then you get them home and you got 12 birds that you're feeding and you're only getting 3 eggs. It doesn't, you know. Be safe. Buy your hens from a feed store or someone who's hatching them. Okay, that you can actually get a certification at how old they are, depending on how you feel about unvaccinated birds. Okay, normally I hatch my own. This year, I'm raising Barred Plymouth Rocks for meat, as well as I'm going to keep a couple to freshen my laying flock. I keep my birds inside the coop for the winter. So before the really deep onset of winter, around the 1st of December, the coop needs to be thoroughly cleaned. Okay, shove them all outside in their yard for one last, yahoo before winter, and really scrape down that coop and put a good 6 inches of shavings on the floor and fill their nesting boxes with straw. Okay, you can use straw on the floor as well, but they'll have a tendency to nest in it, and if you don't want to step on eggs, or you don't want them to get in the habit of laying on the floor, because it's going to get nasty in there over the winter. So I recommend for the winter, shavings on the floor, never cedar, always pine. Cedar can make your laying hens sick. So pine shavings on the floor, about 6 inches deep, and fresh straw in their nesting boxes. Scrape down their roosts, okay? And then every week or two, give a scatter of fresh shavings on the floor. Clean out their nesting boxes about every 2 weeks with some fresh straw. And they'll be very happy chickens. In the winter, when they're locked in, I also recommend giving them a dust bath. Chickens don't bathe in water. Chickens bathe in the dirt. Sounds crazy, but it's true. In the summer, you will notice they will lay down in the dirt and they will scratch up the dirt and they will throw it over their back and they will dust it all through their feathers, and then they will preen and actually comb out their feathers from dirt. This is a really important process. This keeps them clean and free of lice and other vermin. So when they're locked in the winter, you have to provide them a bath because they're more susceptible to lice because they're all housed together. So keep your eyes peeled for a plastic baby bathtub, the old-fashioned kind, not the kind with the slope back, just the old-fashioned baby bathtub. And if you have a fireplace, outdoor fire pit, or wood stove, save your ashes and sift them through just an old, not a screen, but an old piece of, 1/4 inch rabbit wire or anything like that, the door off an outdoor fireplace, anything like that. But sift them so there's no nails or bits of charcoal in them. Save yourself a bucket of ashes. Mix that with a half a bucket of clean sand. If you have a sand pit nearby, save it. Make sure it's dry. Save it for this purpose only. And in the middle of the winter, fill that baby bathtub with a bucket of ashes and a half a bucket of clean, dry sand. Put it in a corner of the coop, not under the roosting things, because they will probably poop in it. But if you put it, say, under the nesting boxes, they can go in, they can bathe, and your chickens will stay clean and vermin-free all winter long. Ashes especially will keep the vermin down. All right. Keeping chickens over winter, they need extra body fat. So I actually, in the wintertime, I occasionally, every couple of weeks, I will give them a suet cake. Now, I don't give them the suet cakes you buy at the store. I make my own. I will save drippings from meat not chicken, of course. But I will save drippings from bacon or pork roasts or anything like that. Or you can just use plain, clean lard. And all you do is you take some scratch grain and some lay mash, and you pour it in a loaf pan, and then you melt some lard, or you put it in a bowl, you melt some lard, and you pour it all over the grain, and then you pack it into a loaf pan and let it gel. And then you can pop it out of the loaf pan and give it to them maybe once a week. This will give them some variety, but it'll also give them much needed extra fat to help them keep their bodies warm over the winter. Keeping chickens, especially laying hens, over winter can be a lot of hard work. But if it's done properly, you'll have happy, healthy birds for many seasons to come. This is the Mrs. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying, happy animals make healthy food. Bye!